Hello, Gary here from Pathways Homestead. Today I'm going to talk to you about splitting firewood. Splitting firewood is a very useful homestead skill. It is a skill that is perfected with time and experience and practice. It's a skill that is harder than it looks. There's more skill involved than just swinging a maul or pulling a lever on a log splitter. One of the important parts of splitting wood is reading the log, and it's not it's not like reading a book, but there are things on a log that you can see that help you know how to split. You can see here that here's a natural crack in the wood. Here's some cracks in the grain. Those are all signs to look for when you're splitting wood. That's one of the ways you read the wood. But also you look at the sides of the wood. It's always hard to split on a knot, so you've got to figure out if it's running where there's a knot. If there's a twist in the wood, there's a pretty serious twist here and a knot, and that's not going to split well there. If there's a crotch where two branches come together, a lot of times that doesn't split well, but if it's the right shape of crotch, sometimes that's the place to split. And I don't have an example right here, but it's something you kind of learn with time. So we're going to show you today kind of how some of this works. This log's fairly straight. No twists. The knots are little and they're not in the way of that, so I'm going to try splitting that right there. I broke the handle out of my maul, so we're going to try using a pole axe or just a small axe and see if I can split it. So here's this pretty good crack. It goes into center cracks. Looks pretty straight there. That's where I'm going to try to split it. I'm not going to hit right on that crack. I'm going to hit far of that crack. You can see I hit a little to one side of where I was aiming, but you can see the crack that started there. We're going to try it again. And that is why they call me lightning. I never hit in the same place twice.
You need a wedge on that?
Yes, I need a maul. This axe is really not heavy enough to split hedge.
Is that hedge green too?
No.
Okay.
It was standing dead. I've turned it over and I'm going to try to split it from the other way because I got a pretty good crack in it. Come on, lightning. Okay, now I'm going to lay it right here. And I'm going to split right in the middle. So there you go, we split. Started on that crack. Here's the bottom side. This is where we were hitting. Right there. We've got it started. We turned it over and hit it from the other side. Flopped it on its side and hit it again. Got it to split. Another important part of splitting wood is knowing what kind of wood you're working with. And after a while, you'll learn what wood's going to split easy and what won't. Hedge typically doesn't split super easy. This was an axe Using the maul works the same way. Don't have mine currently. But another way to split wood is with a sledgehammer and a wedge. And we're going to show you that next. Okay, we've got a log here, and there's a little knot fork right here. So I know I want to be to one side or the other of it. A little bit of a twist right there, so I know I need to be one side of it. There's a crack right here, so we're going to start right there. I don't typically put my wedge right in the middle of the log because it will absorb more of the blow there. I get closer to one edge, and I'm just going to tap it in. There we go. I got it to stay. I get it to where it'll stand up on its own. And there you see we split that log. We're going to try to split this piece one more time, if we can. Okay. And there we go. A lot of times on harder splitting wood, a wedge is really the way to go. You gain more from every lick. It continues to stay there and get wider and wider on every lick. When I was young and small and learning to split wood, and I'm talking like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, the only way Dad let us split was with a wedge and a hammer, because every lick meant something, and also there wasn't a blade on the end of it, it was just a hammer. Sometimes we knocked the crap out of our shins, but we weren't going to cut our leg off. So that's one of the ways to split wood, and you can see that reading your wood's important with that too. The next way we're going to show you today is to use a hydraulic log splitter. We're going to use the same principles. Using the hydraulic log splitter, sometimes you can split through a knot if you can find the knot that's got the right grain running through it. That's when sometimes a crotch that's very V-shaped and very up and down, not U-shaped and not wide, you can split right through a crotch with a log splitter just because it's got more force. We've got a 20-ton log splitter with a 6-horse motor on it, and that's what we're going to use today. It's got an old Wisconsin Robin motor on it, and it's pretty reliable. It's pretty beat up. I'm going to tell you, this log splitter is probably 30 years old. I think I've owned it for 25 years or something like that, and I bought it used. So, and it's been rebuilt and redone and fixed and patched, and right now it's got 2 flat tires, but I don't move it. I just use it right where it's at. So we're going to use that. So I'm going to get that log splitter started up, we'll show you how that works. One of the first things I do on most 4-stroke motors before I use them is check the oil. It's important that the engine has plenty of lubrication. And one of the quickest way to run a motor is to run it out of oil. So I check the oil, and I'm going to check the gas. Yeah, it's got plenty of gas in there. This old motor's kind of been beat up. You can tell it's been on a log splitter. I got it. It didn't have a breather cap. We've made one here. It's got a breather foam inside there. But anyhow, we're gonna put that on full choke. Go have the accelerator all the way forward. I'm going to let it warm up for a minute, and then I'll show you guys how to do it. I'm not going to be able to talk a lot because the splitter's loud, but remember our log reading principles, they still go into effect with the log splitter. All right, we let that idle down for a minute before we shut it off, and that's easier on the motor. You can see how this log splitter works. When you pull the lever down, it pushes the wedges on the moving end on this one. Some of them, the wedges on the other end, and there's just a flat plunger on the cylinder end. This one will work in a upright, horizontal position, but it works in this. It tips up and works in this vertical position, which means I don't have to lift wood up onto it. I can just roll it under there on these big logs. That's great, and it's really handy. It also has these these bars, and if you get a log stuck on it on the wedge, you pull it back up, and these will push it off. You do have to be careful if you got a log stuck on it. Don't have your fingers in the way. You can take a finger off if you're not watching what you're doing. So you've got to kind of watch what you're doing. Make sure you got hydraulic fluid in it. And then this is just a hydraulic cylinder that runs there. Here's the hydraulic valve. There's a hydraulic storage tank right here. And on the back of the motor is a hydraulic pump. And that's how the log splitter works. And same deal. You guys saw me, I split one right in the growth crotch like I showed you. Got one to split that way. Got one that I tried to split right around the knot, and I got hung up on the knot, so I kind of had to go to the other end and start from it. And you can see that this log splitter applies a lot more force than I was able to by hand. So there's some logs that I just wouldn't even attempt to split by hand if I can help it. In fact, I've been known to, whenever I was cutting everything, splitting everything by hand, sometimes it just gets left in the woods. Some of the big tough ones with the big knots and stuff in them and twisted, they just don't split well. This hedge, it splits good, but it splits hard. There's some wood like red oak that splits a lot simpler or a lot easier, and it's pretty straight grain, so it will split fairly simple. There's some wood that doesn't take as much pressure but isn't very straight grain, like a hackberry, so you can get it to start to split, but it's hard to get it apart. But that's just kind of what we wanted to show you today about splitting wood. Is there anything else I need to?
I think we're good.
Alright, so remember guys, be careful. Definitely be aware of where your fingers are, where your hands are, where that pressure that wood's going, because if it's at an angle, it could pop the wood out and hit you. And you can cut another piece of firewood and you can fix a piece of equipment, but if you get hurt, that's definitely more serious, so be careful. And I hope you learned something, and remember that God made you special and He loves you very much.